We are back for another Hillstone Cybersecurity Tech Talk, Matt. I love these things because every month we talk about something different, and this one I'm very excited about.
Yeah, and it's funny because you think like you're pretty well versed in kind of cybersecurity and what's going on in the world, but every month it's like you learn something new, and I realize how little I actually understand about this crazy world we live in. So it's a great experience. Great
What is
experience.
what is this crazy world? What are we talking about this month?
So here's interesting, right? Digital transformation is all the rage,
Hmm.
and it applies to companies big and small. And part of that transformation process is the cloud. Like, how do you use the cloud? Where do you use the cloud? When do you use the cloud? And what are the risks associated? By the way, are you ready to move to the cloud? And when you do, what are the risks associated with moving to the cloud, right? And how do you account for those? So today we have a couple of cool folks in a really cool company to talk to us about their experience and the experiences in this, and kind of what they see out in the world, and how they look at things. So first, I'm going to save our most important guest for last.
Yeah.
But first, we're going to. So now they're wondering like who's who, right? First is Alex Rodriguez. Alex is the deputy director of sales and marketing for Hillstone in the Americas. Alex is an awesome guy. He's been doing this forever. Believe it or not, he looks 25, but he's actually like 92, and he's been doing this since the golden era. I'm just kidding. Alex, thanks for being with us. We really
Welcome,
appreciate you being
Alex.
here.
Thank you. Actually turning 50 this year, so you bump it up a little too much. But yeah, thank you so much. I've been exposed into the IT computer networking security industry since I was literally a teenager. I had the choice to either own a computer or a bike or a new bike because I've grown out of my little bike. And ever since I got involved into the mobile industry, then I have worked with several um, companies, and now super excited to represent Hillstone in the Americas, opening up our businesses for cybersecurity transformation.
And Alex, where are you based out of?
I'm based out of South Florida, originally from Venezuela, and covering the whole Americas since then.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here. And next is the star of our show. I wish we had a drum roll or something we could do, but Federico Desia is the CEO, co-founder of Nub8. Federico's been around not as long as us. He's younger and better looking than we are, and that's okay. But he has a wealth of experience in cloud consulting, cloud application development, cloud security, cloud migrations. And that's what Nub8 does. They help companies. I'm going to let him speak for his company, but from what I've seen, they help companies of all sizes along that kind of transformation progress to the cloud, and maybe not to the cloud, but kind of figuring out where they stand. And he has a wealth of experience in this. So I'm going to shut up and let you take the floor from here. Great to meet you, Federico. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, Matt and Steve. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss today. Yeah, I've been around for almost 15 years in technology, right? Always had a passion for how technology can help us, individuals and companies. I guess that comes from the family. And yeah, at Navate, what we try to do is we try to help companies securely adopt the cloud, right? Security is a very important topic for all of us, and so that's how we try to help companies in their cloud journey, right? So, like you said, developing applications, secure applications, or just helping them make sure that whatever they have on the cloud is secure. So yeah, excited about today's call.
And Federico, where are you based?
I'm also based in South Florida. I'm originally from Uruguay in South America, but I moved to the States almost 9 years ago.
Excellent. And your customers are kind of across the Americas. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yes. We work all over the Americas with a strong focus in the U.S. market.
Excellent. So listen, let's just jump right into this, okay? So as we were talking about at the beginning, digital transformation is all the rage. It's not just a buzzword. Companies really are trying to kind of digitalize, if you will, their business and business processes. And the cloud is a big part of that, right? I found it interesting as I was learning about Navate, kind of the breadth of services you kind of go across, right? Or that you span, right? From everything from kind of the, are you ready to move to the cloud? What applications or workloads should you move to the cloud? How do you move to the cloud? What's the best balance of on-prem, off-prem? And then the security aspect. Tell us a little bit more about like when you engage with a customer, what does that experience look like? What can they expect to see from a Navate as far as like that process looks like?
Sure. So the first thing is to understand exactly why companies want to migrate or leverage the cloud, right? Many times it's because, let's say, they want to move to a more flexible, scalable, situation, right? Sometimes it's because they also have some expectations in terms of cost savings, right? But it's also, or mainly, they are trying to um, take their business to a whole new level, let's say, because they want to build a new application that is more in line with whatever they want to accomplish. So the first thing for us is trying to understand exactly what they want to accomplish. It's key that we start this journey, or that they start a journey with a good understanding of where they want to finish, right? Or at least where they want to be. So that's
Yep.
the first step we take. We try to understand exactly what they want to accomplish. And once we all have a good understanding, right? It's a matter of defining a plan with what we call early wins, right, or quick wins, right? A good understanding of how we can help them in terms of whatever services, right, and what we are going to do for them, but also what is their involvement, right? How they want to take part of that. And so we take them through a journey with the design of that cloud migration plan. We help them through the process of actually implementing those, for example, AWS or cloud services, right? And then actually migrating workloads to that new cloud environment. And when you have those clients that it's not about migrating, but actually starting their journey with a new cloud native solution, like a cloud native application, right? It's exactly what they want to accomplish with that application, right? How we are going to develop that application, how they need to be involved,
Yep.
and um, yeah,
So,
basically.
so with that said, I mean, everybody assumes that, I moved to the cloud and everything's going to be better. My life will be better. Life is easier. It's cheaper and it's more secure. But, we just read last week, Microsoft Azure and Outlook were hacked, right? This seems to be a regular occurrence among in the cloud. And, if you believe some of the statistics out there, 45% of the attacks against organizations originate in the cloud. So, kind of bringing this to, kind of putting the security lens on this, what do you see? And Alex, I'm going to ask you to jump in as well. What do you see from a security perspective? What are the things that customers you find customers or folks that you're engaging with, businesses you're engaging with, don't understand about security in the cloud and some of the threats that you see happening out there?
One of the things we try to protect the most are actually money and valuables. Whether we have a safe at home, or we bring that money to a bank and open up a bank account, or we bring our jewelry to a safety deposit box at a bank. So, with that in mind, we need to think about how do we secure the data. Now it's all about digital money, virtual currency. So, the same way we will need to think about, well, if a bank had a headquarter where they have a vault and they have several branches where they also have smaller vaults and they need to transport that money, they have to use armored vehicles. So that analogy applies into the IT, cybersecurity, and then cloud, because the minute that mainframes stopped being manufactured, banks started to deploy server-based applications. And those server-based applications began with a firewall where we open up particular ports and we did VPNs, and we started doing remote secure sessions. But as we grew the application set, because it wasn't just a savings book or a checkbook that we had, but we started doing mobile payments. We started doing ATM transactions. We started doing virtual currencies, as I said a couple seconds ago. Then banks needed to say, well, look, we need to start protecting this environment a little bit better. And that's how we started adding different layers of security. But now, as all these services are moving to cloud-based providers, and again, it applies to a bank, it applies to any industry. But the moment that you start moving valuables, which is data, which is patients records for a medical industry, or um, inventory parts for a manufacturer retailer, or payroll information for large organizations, then that data becomes very vulnerable as you move it in the IT, IP world in order to move it from a physical on-prem server all the way up to the cloud. So that's when you need to start thinking, wow, I need to protect that environment. That cloud needs to be protected because it's also a server sitting somewhere in Amazon Azure or somebody else's private or public cloud. Then how do I protect it there?
I would add that it's key that everyone understands the shared responsibility model and where they stand with their data, their application, or whichever way they are going to leverage the cloud, right? If it's infrastructure as a service, you need to understand how, like, your responsibility protecting, securing your data, your servers, right? If you need a firewall, if you're, I don't know, thinking about platform or software as a service, right? What is your responsibility and what is the vendors, right? Be it Microsoft, Amazon, Google, whatever. I think it's key, and that's where we should all start, right? Have a good understanding of the shared responsibility model, and from there, plan your strategy with firewalls, with data protection, and many other security approaches.
So Federico, that sounds like something out of Cloud Security Alliance handbook, right? The shared responsibility model. Can you, as you kind of walk customers through, Alex did a great job of kind of just, kind of laying out what that data journey looks like. Can you walk through, like, when you're engaging with a customer and you start assessing them from a security perspective, what are the things you look for? What are the big mistakes, or not necessarily mistakes, but common things you see around, with customers that can quickly be addressed and need to be addressed?
So you said it at the beginning of the previous questions, right? There's a misconception on I will move to the cloud and everything is secure, right? And no, actually no. You need to understand, or we need to understand, like, okay, what am I going to develop? An application? Is that application, I don't know, exposed to the web, and so. Should I protect from potential attacks? Who has access to my application, to my data, right? Do I have a good understanding of who needs to access who and what, right? That's also key. So yeah, definitely, I think there's a misconception. That's a big situation that we always encounter. And so there's a lot of enablement needed, on customers.
And do you find that the customers that you help on this journey to the cloud, do they understand everything that's required to protect their data and protect their workloads, or do they need help?
Well, no, and that's I guess that's why we provide value. That's why we say that we help companies securely adopt the cloud, right? Businesses want to focus on whatever they are good, right? And they don't want to be worried about am I securing this
Right.
correctly or not. That's why they move to the cloud, right? You want the as a service model. I want to take care of my business. So no, they definitely need that help. That's why we've been so focused on making sure we provide, secure services to our customers. And I think that's going to continue being more and more important. We, like you mentioned, the hack last week, but I mean it's common news. It's only getting worse. So
Yeah. So, we talk about security sometime in three vectors, right? There's people, right? There's process, and there's product, right? So people, you got to train them, you got to make sure they're continually trained and ready. Process, what are the things you do and how do you test those processes, and to make sure that you're implementing the right processes to stay secure. And third is product, right? And that's what are the technologies you're deploying to secure, which is why we have Hillstone here as well. So from both of your perspectives, I mean, what are the products that the technology products that you would typically, Federico, you would typically work with a customer to deploy to ensure that security is provided, software supply chains accounted for, so on and so forth. And Alex, how does the Hillstone portfolio align to what Federico is doing?
Let me bring you back to probably a couple of decades ago, when the networks became very common, right? We started to have Nobel and Sun Microsystem and Microsoft starting to deploy networks. And then we started to have connected PCs. And then all of a sudden there were restrictions, there were some rules and policies. You said it yourself. People, procedures, and products, right? And then we understood that connecting to a shared server was difficult. I needed to have rights. I needed to have credentials. And then all of a sudden I said, well, you know what? I'm going to stick a USB memory flash card on the USB port of my computer and then start pulling down data. That became a hassle. And then that became a vulnerable point. So now it's exactly the same. We think that the cloud has that protection because, the data is sitting somewhere in a data center and it's, hugely protected. If they're hosting applications from other large company, then my data is also secure. Well, guess what? No. And that's where we need to start laying the foundation that, again, going back to the example of the bank, we have products that reside within the ATM. So when you go to an ATM machine, behind the screen, you will probably find a Hillstone firewall allowing to have SD-WAN connection for that ATM to have two paths of connectivity, to have redundant connection into some sort of a server farm hosting the connection of the ATM. In that server farm, then we have probably a BDS that would analyze what is going on in terms of traffic. And if you have multiple servers, then you might be virtualizing those servers. And then, we have products for the microsegmentation of the environment. And then eventually, if that microsegmentation happens to reside in a hybrid, or you bring it all the way to the cloud, the public cloud, then at that level, we also have products that are being deployed in the public cloud companies. So you will find Hillstone products all the way up to the public cloud. So to your point, we are trying to protect the people with the right products at the different stages of the processes where they are using that data.
Sure.
Whether you go to a store and you pay, so that point of sale has to be protected, so that PCI compliance and that security layer is there. But as the data is transmitted, assuming using an SD-WAN connectivity, it's also protected over a secure SD-WAN. And if it resides somewhere in a server or a cloud, then it's also protected in those instances too.
And Federico, how does it align? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think that going back to the people, process, and products, it's true, right? But by being in the cloud, we definitely can leverage the benefits of a more robust infrastructure, right, from these cloud providers. But we need to understand that, like Alex was saying, right, you also have that responsibility of adding those products, right? Because it's not only the cloud provider, it's those products like the firewall that will allow you to have that whole secure infrastructure, whole secure environment. We are constantly transmitting data. We are constantly exposed with web applications. I mean, in this remote world, right, where we're all working from our houses or from wherever, it's even more important. It's nowadays it's I would say impossible to make sure that all employees are in one same location and it's like a vault, right?
Sure.
It's not possible, right? And the only way to secure this new reality is with these products, right? The firewall, multi-factor authentication, right? Endpoint security, right? There are so many solutions that will eventually comprise the whole security solution of a company, that we need to make sure we're using the best products out there, not only relying on one. So yeah, definitely having specialized products, companies that focus on one specific solution or a specific type of security is key. So that's always our suggestion, right? To make sure we're going with the best products.
Yeah. So are you, when you engage with a customer, Federico, or maybe it's a new, potential customer, what do you find their kind of like starting security posture is like typically? Is it, are they, they have a mishmash of products that aren't integrated and, leave a bunch of vulnerabilities? Do they have nothing? Are they typically pretty secure? What do you typically see out there?
It of course depends on the industry that customer is in, right? Going back to one of the examples Alex was mentioning in the financial sector, it's a heavily regulated sector, right? And so there's awareness, there's knowledge, but I would say many times you don't find a holistic approach or strategy, right? And so you will definitely many times encounter these situations where there's not a robust approach and awareness of what's there, right? Because different business units might be using different solutions. So I would say that, for example, in the financial industry, you will see a very evolved situation. Then when you move to retail, that's where I guess where we've been the most surprised, right? Because retail and with e-commerce, you would expect people transacting constantly, having secure solutions. That's where we've seen a lot of gaps, right? Especially in terms of how they are securing customer data, for example. That's why we see all these hacks, right? And we see all these situations where it's all about customer data being exposed, right?
Sure.
So I would say that's one difference, right? Maybe because it's not as regulated, maybe because we see new, I would say, businesses, right, become huge in very fast because of technology. So I would say those are two industries where you see the differences because of the regulations.
And Alex,
I want to agree with. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to
I
ask.
want to agree with Federico. Thank you. I want to agree with Federico, but I also want to invite you guys to reflect on the following. Back in the time when we needed to have a network, they must have elements where a router, a switch, some sort of modem or connectivity, broadband, and that firewall was a nice to have.
Mhm.
But it has transitioned very fast into not only a must have, regulated, required, operational need. Imagine a retail, right? Federico was talking about it. But let's go down to the basic level. You have a very nice boutique cookie store.
Mhm.
One single shop that person is a nice pastry chef and says, I make the best cookies. But what about if that person gets a online order and it has to be picked up and delivered by a third party company that you have to have an online transaction with a credit card information. Imagine that very nice boutique cookie store being hacked and exposed. It's going to go out of business.
Yeah.
Because the data exposure of credit card information, customer information, it's going to go public.
Yeah.
And imagine that, extrapolate that into a multi-location retail, multinational company that is going to get hacked. They're going to go down. They're going to go not only down in terms of connectivity, they're going to shut them down. They're going to be affected by a ransomware attack. They're going to be robbed one way or the other because the data was already stolen. And if they want that data back, they're going to have to pay some sort of ransom. And that's impossible now to operate without different layers of security. So that nice to have became a necessity. That's why even now you see even some of our products are firewall plus security. We start out with the security in mind. And it's already proven that in a couple of years, the investment in cybersecurity is going to be higher than the actual amount of money invested in networking.
Yeah.
So people will put a lot more money to secure their networks before they actually build their networks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to what you're saying, Alex, I mean, there's you bring up a good point. There's a cost associated with each one of these exploits, right? And it's ransomware, but there's also unquantifiable cost, and that's reputation and brand, right? I mean, if I go to Federico's Cookies, by the way, you made me very hungry. Thank you. And I had my card information stolen when I ordered a cookie from him. There's no way I'm going to go back to him. Number one. Number two, I'm going to tell all my friends, don't go to Federico's Cookies because they have, I tend to get hacked when I go there. And something else that Steve and I have talked about this a bit is, where it used to be, hackers would go after the biggest of the big companies because that's where the biggest payload was. And the last couple of years, what we're seeing from a numbers perspective is I think SMB is making up over half of the exploits now. Hackers are going after those smaller companies because they know they're not as well protected, and they know that they are more willing to pay the cost of the ransomware because it will literally put them out of business, right? Reputationally, it will kill that business. Whereas a Target can overcome, what happened when it got hacked back in 2011. That small cookie shop can't overcome the reputational hit that they took, right? So it's more critical to pay the hacker, even if I'm paying them less, or if a hacker's getting less. There are a lot more targets, and they're more willing to play my game. And I don't know if you see that at all, Federico, or
I agree in that trend and what we are seeing. I don't know if all businesses are aware, you know. I don't know if there's awareness on these informations, on these statistics, or if there's awareness, but they don't think it can happen to them, right? Why would somebody want to attack this mom and pop shop, But definitely agree with what you're saying. And Alex said it well in terms of how affected they can be and how they can be a target. So, yeah, I agree. I just hope more businesses will have that awareness and have that in mind, right, and being top of mind.
Don't quote me on this, but I read the figure that really impressed me, and it goes like this: the amount of money of drug trafficking worldwide is somewhere around $5 trillion a year. But the amount of cybercrime plus the investment in cybersecurity tops $8 trillion a year.
Yeah,
cybercrime, right?
10 trillion.
It's not that companies are investing $8 trillion a year. No, the money being stolen accumulates to $8 trillion a year. So if we were to see some sort of drug trafficking, a submarine that got picked, between crossing one country to the other. I don't want to name any countries in particular, but or a big truck or people getting off a plane with drugs and stuff. They'll be in the news, right?
Yeah.
But do you see that small cookie store saying, "Oh, I got hacked. Don't come to my store anymore. Don't buy my products anymore."
Right.
Imagine the larger companies. They're keeping their mouths shut
Yeah.
because they cannot lose business, but they're getting hacked
Oh yeah.
left and right every day.
Yeah. Look,
So
if cybercrime were a GDP, it would be the third largest in the world behind the US and China. I think the latest I saw was 33,000 websites a day are attacked, not necessarily exploited, but 33,000 a day are attacked. That's one every 2.88 seconds a website is attacked. Um, this is a vibrant market and it's growing, and that 8 million is going to go to 10 million or 10 trillion very quickly. 8 trillion to 10 trillion very quickly. Sorry.
correct.
So let's bring this around to, so, we have a gentleman who spends his life helping companies, kind of figure out, map and make those migrations to the cloud securely. I should add that in.
Yep.
And then we have a gentleman who represents, a global provider of cybersecurity products that kind of span the device or the thing all the way up to the cloud. Let's start with Federico. Why Hillstone? I mean, you look at the market, you see all these different companies out there. What about Hillstone is interesting to you and makes you go, you know what, they could be a good partner for me?
So it's all about the value proposition and that specialization, right? And having something different. Like you said, there are many players, right? But you want the best player. You want the player that best adjusts to the customer situation, right? And so I think that's why it's key to have a partner that will allow you to have the best solution, the best offering, the most robust solution, right? For your customers, because what we want to make sure is that they are secure, that they have the best solution that will achieve that goal. And so I guess that's why it makes sense to have a very specialized partner like Hillstone. I don't know, Alex, if you want to add anything to that, but for us it's that combination, right, of making sure that we have the best for our customers.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate the way you see us, and that's what we're trying to bring as a manufacturer, as a vendor. We're trying to give an end-to-end, multi-layer solution. Actually, what we try to accomplish is we want to give you visibility. I mean, those customers that deploy our technology, what we want to accomplish is we want to give the customer visibility so they understand what is going on in terms of the data. And also, if there is some sort of vulnerability being exploited, then we allow you to act on that finding. We're also bringing in artificial intelligence, machine learning. So beyond just manufacturing a basic appliance-based hardware element firewall, we are bringing in intelligence into our value proposition. So I'm glad that Federico sees it that way, and that's what we're trying to do. Get partners that see that it's not just a regular firewall or UTM as they have been accustomed to, but we have that vision in bringing all the way up to even the cloud workload protection platforms and having products that would cover that breadth of requirements. We're talking to banks, and let me go back to the example I said a few minutes ago, that we're talking to institutions that are actually manufacturing the ATMs before they actually are owned by a bank and they're deployed at an ATM kiosk. We're talking to those type of entities, and they're saying, well, the same way I give them a keypad or a nice screen or a nice software so people do multiple transactions, let me bring the Hillstone product within the ATM so I could provide other layers of security, because we don't stop there. That bank would eventually be able to manage the security from the cloud all the way down to the physical security at the ATM level. So having that breadth of products it's allowing us to partner with companies like Nuvate, and we're looking for more out there so we could bring this to customers.
Excellent. So, and what about, I'm going to kind of switch this around. So you mentioned, partnering with Nuvate, Alex. What is it about a company like Federico's, like Nuvate? By the way, it's nuvate.net, not .com. that you go, you know what, this is a partner that we really want to. Number one, you brought them on a podcast, which is great, but make you want to invest, kind of time and resources to, to drive solutions through them. Is it the breadth of their offering? Is it the intelligence of the company and everything they've done, or what is it?
Well, I find in them a high level expertise. I've seen Federico traverse from selling infrastructure, many years ago, selling router switches and understanding that there was a network to be built. And then as the transition to the cloud happened, he immediately said, well, that's where I want to go. So that expertise, that vision, that transition of selling something and then adding value to something intangible, because remember, what is the cloud? Literally something intangible. But we all know that there is a server and a network infrastructure somewhere. But having that knowledge of saying, okay, how do I bring my customers to use that from on-premise to a cloud-hosted platform and infrastructure, and then having that finesse of talking to customers and say, well, I saw your infrastructure in the past. Now let me bring with our expertise and knowledge, how do we transition you into a virtual environment? So that's what I found in Federico. That's what I see in Nuvei, that we need to partner with companies like them to help customers transition securely into the cloud.
That's a strong endorsement. Wow. So there's a
We're gonna
love
bring him to do more pitches, right?
I love it. I love it. Hey guys, any last words or recommendations or suggestions for our viewers and listeners before we transition to saying goodbye? Anything you want to throw out there for food for thought or anything?
I actually have a question to you guys. You talked about and covered so many subjects and talked to different audiences. What do you suggest we do as a partner and as a vendor to make our message more understandable? Because again, we spoke about customers not embracing all the tools and all the products and all the processes. So how could we educate our customers better in terms of adopting security?
Yeah, that's a good one. Steve, do you want to start?
Yeah, no, I think Hillstone does this very well. Don't lead with talking about the products, lead with talking about the problems that you're trying to solve, right? Because that's much more relatable. I don't know why I need all of these things that I can buy for cybersecurity, right? But if you can tell me how, and I think, forums like this go a long way towards that, right? That makes a huge difference for the IT guy.
Oh man, that was
Thank you.
good. That was good. And I would agree with Steve.
You're not going to get away, Matt. So what's your view?
I agree with Steve. I think you do a great job of telling your story, and I think people do. They don't necessarily need to. They don't necessarily want to know all of the details. They want to focus on kind of outcomes, right? And they want to focus on kind of what that end state looks like. So, and you can't be so high level that you just say, "Trust us, we secure everything." But there's a level of detail that you have to get to. But I think kind of in speaking to that end-to-end protection is super important. I think every IT person I speak to, and I know Steve talks to probably more than I do, they're aware that they have exploits. They're aware that they have 45 different products deployed, and yet they still have a bunch of vulnerabilities across their network, right? They don't need someone to tell them that over and over again. They need a company to come in that can work with them to kind of air gap that environment from device, ATM, all the way up to the cloud. And you guys have the portfolio. And for Nub 8, I think it's just a matter of getting your name out. I was impressed, Federico, with the breadth of services you deliver, and the type, and looking through some of the success stories you have, the types of companies that you're servicing. It's impressive. I think we just need to let the world know that you exist and what a great job you and your team do. So, we'll try and do more and more of that for you.
I appreciate that, and just to add on to that, I agree with that approach in terms of the outcomes, right, and how it relates to, let's say, my use case or how it relates to what I want to accomplish, and I think it's all businesses could benefit from starting by assessing where they are today, right? What's important to them, how vulnerable they can be. Even if it's a cookie shop, like Alex was mentioning before, right? What is my exposure? How can I make sure that I'm at least protected, right? And take it from there. It's not about making these huge investments. It's about making sure we are protected. So I guess I would recommend everyone to start there, right? Where we are,
Yeah.
and how can we make sure we can continue being in business.
And to learn more about Navate in Hillstone, they go to, what are the URLs again?
Navate.net.
Yeah, and hillstonenet.com.
Well, thanks, Alex and Federico, for doing this. And Matt, I'll see you again next month on the next Hillstone Tech Talk,
If not before.
if not before. All right, guys.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chief.